I've had this theory for some time, and it goes back to what I experienced all the way back to 2008, which is that I contend that a number of people who immigrated to the United States from Central America, including people that would be identified as undocumented and or illegal aliens, were engaged in processes of organ harvesting for one manner or another, one reason or another. Specifically, I believe that there was something connected to the increase in reports of men, specifically Hispanic, identified demographically of Hispanic, of a certain age range that were acquiring diabetes. These would be men around my age or younger, almost early 30s to early 40s. What would otherwise be a prime age for a man to be involved in his family, to be involved in his community building, to be engaged in what would otherwise be the natural time of life for somebody to come into their own. I believed there was a disproportionate preponderance of men specifically that were obtaining diagnoses as being diabetic, including in connection with severe organ damage that would necessitate somebody attempting to try to compel them to believe they needed an organ transplant. And that this goes all the way back to whatever they were doing with E-Verify in 2008. Now, at the time, I did not have cognizance that this is what I was identifying or what I was experiencing. But I do know that I was involved in one manner or another, identification of means by which to specifically target people's organ systems for disturbance, insofar as that can be accomplished through inverting or sabotaging processes whereby people can engage in natural healing techniques to regulate their body systems. This also accords with non Western based medicine or non Western based healthcare practices, and is, I also believe, connected in some manner, way, shape, or form to the targeting of the Falun Dafa, and how Congress responded, how the Americans responded to the targeting of Falun Dafa without actually addressing what was going on honestly or authentically, i.e., what is organ harvesting. We're not just talking about opening people up, actually cutting out their physical organs and then selling them on a black market to unqualified physicians that will then use them and transplant them to somebody who has a need for an organ. You can harvest organs without removing them from their body. And that's what's been going on. So the question becomes, well, why were certain people targeted? That was not just about their genotype. This is my theory. Is it's not just about genotype. That a lot of it also has to do with part of what I allege is behind the murder of Beau Biden and John McCain, as well as other people who died of specific kinds of head injuries. That there is a process one goes through psychologically when it comes to running rationales or developing specific tactical scenarios, especially if they have prior life experience in combat situations or in a leadership paradigm where they have to analyze multiple threats, which could include some other kind of problem solving, honestly, akin to the sort of thing you might encounter if you have to deal with, I don't know, providing for the welfare of children under violent circumstances. And so certain people were targeted with directed energy weapons intended to screw with their mental processes in order to excitate them through extreme scenarios into coming up with novel tactical scenarios and unique courses of action that somebody else could extract and use in the development of rationales associated with R&D on weapons development. But it's not just about the weapons development. In some ways, the weapons development are completely subsidiary to the prurient interest that get prioritized by allowing for these sorts of things to happen in the manner they do. And that is for people that are abusing their roles in public office and their roles in the financial sector in order to get away with very illegal, very illicit financial processes that unfortunately have been allowed to have way too much sway as a replacement for ordinary or other political process and an appropriate accounting standard and accountability standard. So then the question is, well, why were certain people that were from certain countries in Central and South America allowed to be disproportionately, I believe, disproportionately identified as being subject to diabetes? It's not just about their diet. If you go down south and you look at how people live and what they have access to, compare it with what's up here, you got a different understanding. Because it's also about what is triggering people to have the kind of appetites they do and consume large quantities of certain kinds of food when there are other options available or where they don't actually even want it. And you don't even actually want to eat, but you're eating because there's some sort of a trigger. There's some sort of a trigger to compel you to overeat. Well, why? And who's doing it? So then the question becomes one of, well, in the post-Soviet paradigm, for whatever reason, it was allowed to have a number of it was allowed to have a number of former industries of the Soviet Union be put through city groups specifically. This has been going on for a while. I believe it started sometime around late 2000s. But those accounts have been other places before. And so for years now, we've had an illicit mixing. And it's illicit because nobody will verify or identify the source of these different financial streams and why or how it is that certain people are supposed to be running isolated accounts associated with commerce, including for countries that are now sanctioned or for entities that are now sanctioned. I contend that there is something highly eugenicist and potentially genocidal in the manner in which they allowed for a certain extractivism of biodata and other things connected to people from the former Soviet Union to circulate through the American economy so that certain individuals and certain groups of individuals, specifically those that allied themselves with a particular political tendency, were allowed to be availed of what I've called in some ways that Russian water. It's not just Russian water. There's a specific manner in which the former Soviet assets were characterized. That when they got put back into recirculation, especially after it was sanctioned, so they couldn't return to where they came from. But certain groups and certain individuals in this country were allowed to have it and wear it around. And that's what's been going on increasingly. So my theory is now that what's going on in Belarus is that Lukashenko is taking and using this time frame during which these people are being detained after they've been arrested as part of these protests. And he's hooking them up into a similar cybernetic sort of paradigm where they're being extracted and they're being harvested, ostensibly as some sort of loan. Is Citigroup aiding and abetting this? No. Did Citigroup conspire to kidnap scores of people in Belarus so that they could be put into a systematology and harvested for recirculation and redistribution? And was it coordinated with an understanding that political actors in the United States from both parties set up very high stakes hedging connected to an intentionally orchestrated biological warfare campaign on their own people, anticipating they'd meet certain benchmarks and accomplish certain goals, but they miscalculated their own risk, and now they need to find a way to coerce nice white minerals from other parts of the world to again cover their asses, or it literally hits them right at their home. That's my theory right now. And it makes sense. It keeps going on. Why am I on a why are you harvesting my organs today? I know exactly what you're doing. I know how you did it. Why did you let those charlatans, apparently that's charlatanry at the Supreme Court level, come up with a bullshit paradigm saying that the government owes the medical insurance sector? That is not at all what happened. Those assholes, those extortionate schemers, set up deals to provide risk insurance, the narcos that infiltrated the government. Why did you let the Supreme Court of the United States set up a process whereby the entirety of the people of the United States, which includes people from other countries originally, by the way, why are we being harvested to pay off criminals using insurance to finance narco cartel infiltration of the government? That's exactly what that told me. You guys screwed up. You let that particular company hook up that crypto shit in order to try to protect against and hook up a certain systematology associated with these bond issues. I've been watching it all fucking year. And I know somebody allowed for cases associated with the Supreme Court of the United States, at least in the last 3 years, to be used as some sort of coverage. Why the fuck are you harvesting my organs? Why are you harvesting our organs? Because here's the problem. We're not going to be able to even pay for that risk insurance they set up to cover the narcos if you keep harvesting our organs to try to compel us to go in and make more charges to health insurance. That's not payment. That's something else. And if you do something where you set up a contract on our lives that somebody else gets to hold and dispossess us of the capacity to negotiate our own terms for our lives, that's slavery. You can't do that.